Okay, good morning, everybody. Week 5, so we're over the hump, more than halfway through. um, just a couple more papers and a final project, and we'll be out of here end of next month. Okay, so according to our syllabus this week, we're covering business intelligence and particularly how big data changed that landscape somewhat, and that's what you'll be writing about. Although pay particular attention to this lecture because if you don't, you'll get the assignment wrong. Quite a few of you are concerned about your grade, rightfully so. I need to see more depth of analysis and focus um, on the instructions and just in general. Seeing a lot of hits on course content late in the weekend. Folks are not getting into the classroom and giving it its due, particularly being an 8-week compressed class. This is a very aggressive project to get through a class like this and give it enough time to succeed. But I know you can do it. Just give it the time and the effort it deserves. Okay, so on with this topic. So we're going to do 2 topics this week. The coursework topic, BI and big data, not terribly complex until you start looking at the research projects as you will, looking at the literature, and then we'll talk about research methodology, which I want you to examine this week. This is continuing on your dissertation support because not enough of you are well on your way to your dissertation, and I don't want it to be a last minute panic or an impediment to your finishing the program. So we will go over traditional BI. We'll talk a little bit about big data slamming into it and messing things up, disruptive technology, and then we'll go into a discussion about methodology, and then I'll tie all that together into your 2 week your week 5 assignments, your discussion, and your paper. Okay, so here's your traditional BI life cycle, just like every other development life cycle you've ever seen. It is, in fact, a cycle. It is cyclical. It goes around and around and around, and one cycle feeds the next. At the very beginning, step one, just like any other data analysis or data science project, or even a software development project, you analyze your business requirements. You figure out what is the mission need, what is the capability gap, what are the unknowns, what's the risk that we're mitigating with all the things that we're doing. So you go through a typical business analysis segment, figure out what you want to know, what do you want to know, and how do you want to get there. Uh, uh, you, Number two, you design your data model, which is uh, traditionally where you would look at the data elements that you need from internal and external sources to address those business questions. And then you design the actual schema, the data warehouse and data marts that support that. You build you actually build the data warehouse, and then you layer, number 5, you layer the visualizations and analysis and reports on top of that data warehouse that answer those business questions. 5 and 6. Those are the actual things, the the objects of the actual reports, the actual dashboards, the actual visualizations, and then 7, you go into, somebody's got to keep this going. Somebody's got to make sure that the data warehouse is being refreshed. New users are being brought on board with appropriate permissions, those sorts of things. Uh, the security of the data warehouse is adequate so that you're not giving away all of your company secrets in one convenient package. And then you start all over again. So that's the business intelligence life cycle. And traditionally, um, this graphic. I left the link in the speaker notes. Traditionally, you're assembling data from your support systems into a data warehouse that feed um, your leadership so that people can make informed decisions. And this data was already complicated, 10 years ago before we started hearing about big data. Bringing in sources from mostly your internal systems, say maybe 10 years ago, your customer relationship management, um, what customers were performing well, what customers were falling off, the conversion rate to onboard a new customer, a new client, ERP, looking at all of your soup to nuts. Well, that's an old colloquialism. Looking at your holistic approach to supporting business processes in an ERP, it could be separate functional areas very easily, like a separate billing, a separate HR system, a separate time clock system. It could be your SCM system is not really integrated into an ERP. And then there are others. There are operational support systems that tell you where you're at with regard to their financial reporting systems that show the money spent on certain segments of line items going through your manufacturing process. Could be software configuration management tools that show you where you're at in relation to satisfying requirements, all going into, because there's so many different verticals, there's so many different business domains out there. The data warehouse can be, but the main point of building that data warehouse, and I've provided links and videos, the main point of it was getting the data out of the operational system, because nothing freaks out your IT guy more than an analyst mucking with data inside of a functional support system that uh, that you could have data quality problems and you can have performance problems. Your query, depending on the tool you're using and computational complexity, and it could impact the performance of that functional support system. So, as part of the BI lifecycle, when you're designing this data warehouse, you figure out when are off peak hours that you can query, how much data to query, what data to query, because you can't, how much aggregation do you want to do, those sorts of things. And then you build your data warehouse, and then you can use the data warehouse for anything because it's offline. It can be refreshed, in semi real time, but often it's used for historical. That's one of the problems that you'll see in your research, is that big data is, particularly its velocity, is coming in now and making that historical data warehouse less useful than being able to integrate real time feeds, which we can talk about next. What changed that model? Everything. Access and creation of big data, all the variety, velocity, veracity, the V's of big data changed the traditional approach to BI. And all of the journal articles that you'll pull up and the sources that I included this week um, will give you more background on exactly how that happened. But some of the things, like we've got news coming in now worldwide, people doing commentary on different companies, depending on the size of your company. It could be mentioned in online news, cable news, talk shows. So depending on the size of your company, you've got to factor in those sorts of things, and then expanding social media, sentiment analysis, hashtags, people coming to your social media platforms, asking questions, um, making commentary, leaving reviews, all of those sorts of things can be analyzed and aggregated into these dashboards in real time. What's trending? If you threw out a brand new advertising campaign, is it trending? Are people sharing it? There's just so much that you can add to, especially larger businesses. situational awareness and decision making processes. And then, of course, mobile data. Come on, your company very likely has an app. There are performance data metrics coming out of related apps. There are ways to get aggregated social media, or I'm sorry, aggregated mobile data, as far as where people are at what time, where as a community they stop. And I thought, I don't propose that you can purchase your location data is purchasable by Google or your mobile phone provider or anything like that. But the aggregate data is available out there, where people are going at certain times of day, and what store locations are they staying at? How long are they staying? These are large scale metrics that are available out there from commercial providers. But then you've got within internal sources, you've got IoT devices in the enterprise. If you're a large scale trucking company or an Amazon, you've got RFID in within the warehouse, within the fleet, so that you're tracking the coming and going and scanning things in real time without even having to put a human being on it necessarily. And you've got optical scanners, RFID, those sorts of bits of data coming flying at a business intelligence dashboard. And within manufacturing, you've got sensors, um, for every stage of manufacturing now that are showing counts of subassemblies and units going through, quality check, reject rates, downtime. Could be that you have, in a larger corporation, you've got manufacturing going on in 10 different places that are interrelated, and you want to know if there's any sort of hiccup, if you're doing just in time manufacturing, so, which leads me into supply chain complexity. Uh, Very often, companies are relying on a complex supply chain that can be affected by weather. It can be affected by political strife, and these sorts of things can be reflected in a business intelligence effort. But then web searches and queries and on and on and on and on and on. The different sources of data that fed into big data. So researchers, of course, as well as practitioners, are looking into that. You can see our big data ecosystem engines like Hadoop and Spark, being integrated with traditional BI platforms, like SAS and Power BI and Tableau, and figuring out how to use that big data, and more currently, to make decisions, that are relevant. Now, this doesn't really get into the whole predictive and prescriptive analytics. It's still looking at what happened and what is happening right now. But check it out. You'll be discussing and writing about that. Mostly writing in your research paper this week. Okay, so that's the overall overarching topic and concern. All the background in the world out there, and of course you've got your data science and big data analytics textbook. Talks a little bit about business intelligence, not a lot. Again, this is uh, uh, tangential. BI is an established practice, and big data tries to look at the future and how that's going to be impacted, which is what you'll look at in your paper. Okay, so next, I want to talk about research methodologies, because that's what I would like for you to discuss this week, in the context of your week 3 um, assignments, which I just finished grading totally yesterday, because it is the end of week 4. So during week 4, I'm grading week 3. and so on and so on. So anyway, we'll talk about research methodologies. How do researchers go about shedding light on a topic? You can't just start writing about it. That's not expanding the body of knowledge. That is blogging and sharing your opinion. So we'll talk about research methodologies. So what is it? There's two major families: quantitative, qualitative. Considerations for you as um, people soon, very soon, to enter your dissertation journey, and need to be taking these things into consideration as soon as possible. Okay, a research methodology. Here's a couple of dictionary definitions. Um, uh, it's the activity involved in finding out, like I said, shedding light on, according to some system, shedding light on things you did not know. And there is a philosophical element to this, a philosophical framework, which are the two traditions, quantitative and qualitative, and then there's a mixture of both. Generally, research projects lie somewhere on a spectrum between quantitative and qualitative data, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And because you can mix those two approaches, and it's called mixed method research. And again, guys, don't rely fully on me. All of this is exhaustively examined out there on your good old friendly internet. Quantitative studies um, generally analyze numerical data. This is hard, cold facts against a theory, or of course, you have experimental design where you have your null hypotheses and your alternate hypotheses, and then you collect data to see if you can accept or reject your null hypothesis. And you'll get into that sort of stuff in your methodological class. You guys will have a full class on this, but I wanted to start thinking about it. Quantitative embrace one of Ford's designs. Subordinate to the quantitative tradition are designs, and you also have designs in qualitative. So you have they're descriptive, experimental, quasi-experimental, and relationship-based research designs. Relationship-based, what are the relations between factors? And if you're going to do a quantitative project, be prepared to write up um, um, your results in statistics language, as far as your confidence interval and whether or not you have significant enough sample size to accept or reject based on the nature of the data, your hypothesis. And they use very specific techniques to generate the research questions and the hypothesis. You'll see most of the research questions I saw turned um, in week 3 were fairly qualitative. How are people doing something? How is a particular technology affecting business? That's a qualitative technique, which is fine. But quantitative techniques are very specific in the way they generate those. And going forward, you'll need to realize that if you're going to do, a software algorithm that you propose is more efficient than the previous one, then you'll have to have data sets and you'll have results. And your hypothesis is that your algorithm is more efficient by a factor of X. And then, and the null hypothesis or the alternate hypothesis being that it doesn't. So, anyway, like I said, there's there's an art to both of these, quantitative and qualitative designs, traditions. Qualitative is much less numbers focused and far more exploratory and soft. It's used mostly in the social sciences, but it's also very useful in computer science, when you particularly are looking at um, people's feelings towards, impressions, perceptions, user perceptions of utility, user perceptions of usefulness of something, user perceptions of the ability to bring on board a new technology. They generally don't test against a hypothesis or a theory. They just explore. They just look at an issue and gather. Uh, Generally, it's textual data like interviews, and you kind of dig through and you ask the standard same questions of everyone in your interviews, but you will discover through the way people talk themes. Themes within these interviews will emerge, and there is somewhat of a prejudice in the research community against qualitative, but particularly in information sciences, because it can be seen as highly, it's interpreted, and then I did phenomenology. You look at a phenomenon. For me, it was the phenomenon of knowledge loss in organizations um, that had intentionally high employee turnover. Um, but then there's ethnography, where you look at a certain group. Uh, Grounded theory is where you're trying to develop a theory. It seems like I didn't do a whole lot of. I didn't look into grounded theory too closely. It seemed outside of what I wanted to do. And then, of course, there's the case study, where you look at a particular situation and you report what you learned. And case studies are um, they're not statistically significant. It's a case study. It's one case, but it does provide information. It provides now you start stacking on case studies. If you have 20 case studies of a similar scenario, now all of a sudden you have data. So there you go. So those are your two families, and then you have mixed methods that can you start with qualitative data, and then you try and put a quantitative fine point on it, or you start with quantitative data, and then you have the statistics, but you want to find out why. Now that you have the no kidding, 60% of executives have decided that blockchain is hokum. And now you go find out why. Somebody did a quantitative survey of something, and you want to go dig into um, the underlying qualitative data regarding that particular issue. So these are good ways to springboard off of previous research, which is exactly one of the things we'll examine here this week. Um, so there you go. Considerations. Now, what you need to realize is that your research question will drive your methodology. So try to not put the proverbial cart before the horse, as we say. Um, don't let your idea that, I want to do a quantitative study, now let me go find something that I can study quantitatively. Don't let the research methodology drive your research question. Let it go the other way around. Okay, your research question will be worded, like, what are executives, leadership perceptions of blockchain in Fortune 500, and then perhaps you'd be fortunate enough uh, um, to do a survey. It would probably be an easier population to get to of, small to medium businesses in Pittsburgh. What are their business leaders' perceptions of blockchain? Um, you know, so your research question will be, like, what are user perceptions of this? How is our big data analytics being used in small retail? I know some of you put that out there, or something related to it in your week 3 um, dissertation foundations. How are they using it? That's exploratory. You could provide some quantitative data in answer to that, but it would be mostly qualitative. How are they doing it? You do interviews, and they would start to tell you how they're looking into it. You might be able to use that qualitative data and quantify certain areas. That's where it becomes mixed method. Um, but yeah, again, if you are looking purely at um, some of you had super specific data science level research questions. Some of them were original, some of them were just repeated from your source because you were just trying to get the assignment done. But if you're doing something that is highly analytical, that's going to put an actual correlation between a couple of variables, or a measurable, quantifiable improvement in something, say a decrease of cybersecurity attacks, or an increase um, in productivity between software teams because you injected something into an agile development or something like that. If your research question will drive your methodology. But as you're going forward and you're thinking about your research question, um, just remember accessing data can be tough. So when it comes time to think of your research question, and you're developing this project conceptually, think about how you would collect the data, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, driven by your research question. So always be thinking like a chess game, 2 or 3 moves down the way. But either way, your University of Cumberland's will approve your study uh, um, through IRB. It's called Institutional Review Board. So just you will write up your your dissertation, your first 3 chapters, as a proposal. You will propose this research project to the university seeking IRB approval. So remember that. It's coming. It's coming. And you will, yes, become much more familiar with this because you're going to propose not only a topic area, problem, purpose, research question. You'll propose that your research methodology is appropriate for that. Okay. All right. So that's the end of that discussion. Now, I want to talk about the week 5 topics, your 2 projects, your 2 assignments. Okay, your paper is going to be on business intelligence and big data, just like the topic of the week, right? Okay, so I want, a half a page or less on what business intelligence is, and the fact that big data adds all this new disruptive churn, these new data sources, the new speed of data that interrupts that classic cycle we talked about because it slams into it. It injects data right in the middle of that cycle, and you have to speed up the way you incorporate big data into BI. So you will find um, um, articles that talk about integrating big data with BI, just in general. Okay, so it's a standard paper, 3 to 5 pages, and I'll attach the same APA template. But please be aware that you don't have to use every section in that template. You don't have to use every header. Some of you use the methodology section in your week 3 research paper, and there is no methodology. Think about what you're putting in the paper. That was purely for making sure you indent your paragraphs and you have a title page, because I wasn't getting that in week 1 and 2. So don't use the template blindly as far as headers are concerned. Okay, so the background of big data and BI should be short. Okay, a few sentences, half a page, a paragraph. All right. But then the heart of this paper, I put it in bold, and I turned in I handed in a lot of 59 out of 80 this week because people just were not reading the instructions, not writing towards the assignment. Those are going to go down and down and down and down if you don't write what I'm asking you to write. Okay. So as you go into these research papers, you're going to need to go out and find research articles on big data and how it's perturbing BI approaches. You can use practitioner. You don't have to stick to Google Scholar, and you don't have to stick to uh, um, the library databases and academic journal articles. A lot of this is fairly cutting edge, but try to use reliable sources. Okay, try to use reliable periodicals, reliable um, even white papers from companies that are in this business space. As long as it's not too sales pitchy, try and avoid. And some of you have cut and pasted our product can do anything. It's fantastic. It's super duper. And you can tell that it's just the sales pitch language that you've gone and used in your paper. So avoid that. But what I want you to do from these sources as you learn about big data and business intelligence this week, and you go to write your paper, find where authors have talked about future research recommendations. And that's what I want you to write about. The bulk of this paper should be about future research into the world of big data and this billion-dollar industry called business intelligence. Okay, this is big, big, big business. Okay, and big data is a hugely disrupting factor. All right, so what are we doing in the future? So when you write about this, write about it like you would a literature review. Uh, the way I'm seeing a lot of students writing about this stuff, they are writing as if they are part of the research team. You are not we, okay? Don't put in this study, we examine anything. That instantly shows me that you're just copying the text from your source. When you're writing about someone else's recommendations, you write it in APA format. You cite the author and the year, just like you would in APA format. You say, Walker, parentheses, 2020, recommends that future research on business intelligence visualizations incorporate big data using real-time techniques or whatever the recommendation is. There's one of the articles I posted in your reading assignments this week. The author actually talks about what the future recommendations are. Okay, so that's what I want this page to be. Now, it can be 3 pages. The minimum can be the maximum. You guys don't have to shoot for 5 pages of, and I'm seeing so many papers where you're pulling in background information out of context from multiple sources just to try and fill it up. And it isn't working, guys. It's not working. You can't turn in, a lengthy paper hoping I won't read it. I hope you're learning that now. I'm gonna look at it, and if it's just distracting nonsense, I'm gonna get angry. Okay, focus your paper. Focus, 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 focus. Edit, proofread. Make sure that every sentence you say makes sense and flows together. Make sure every paragraph you write has a topic sentence, and that your paragraph actually sticks to one idea. Uh, I'm spending way too much time reading. I don't know what. I don't know, but read the syllabus. Read the writing expectations in the syllabus, and think about, or if you're turning in something that matches those expectations. And if you're not, don't turn it in. Work on it harder. Keep working on it until every word, every sentence, every paragraph flows and addresses the instructions and is something you can be proud of. It's not just something you're hoping. Oh, I hope he doesn't read this. Oh, I hope this is right. I hope, gosh, I didn't watch the lecture until Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. I hope this is good enough. Um, Hope is not a course of action. Hope is not a strategy for success. Okay? Don't hope. Do the work, take the time, turn in quality products, get your A, get your doctorate, be done. This is easy in concept, but I'm having a hard time here at the University of Cumberland getting that across. Okay, if for some reason you don't understand these detailed instructions in the 10 minutes I've spent talking about this paper, email me. Okay, email me. What are future recommended research areas? Focus on future research recommendations. That's the entire point of this paper. I think I got it. Future research approaches. I think I got that in bold twice. Future research. Okay. All right. So if I just see a background paper on big data and BI and you don't talk like a researcher, you guys are, PhD candidates, PhD students. You'll be candidates once you're finished with your coursework and your project is approved. Write like it, think like future researchers. Don't think like master's degree students that are just turning in a theme paper. Okay? All right. So that's the paper this week. Now, the discussion. Okay. Okay, guys. Some of you turned in dissertation foundation stuff that you found in your sources. You did not think about it. You did not do anything that was real, like you're actually going to do it. Some of you did. Some of you got 80 out of 80 because it was for real. I turned in quite a bit of perfect scores because it was something that you put thought into and it was for real. And you looked up what is a research question? What is a problem statement in a research paper? What is the purpose statement? The purpose of the research, not the purpose of the phenomenon, not the purpose of the topic. The purpose of the research is either to, develop a framework, propose a framework. It's to explore the user perceptions in a certain area. It's to add to the body of knowledge. There's a purpose for this research. Okay. So if you didn't get a good score on those, or you faked it, hoping that you would get a good score, please revise it. If you got an 80 or maybe I gave you some comments that'll help you revise it. But either way, the first step in week 5 discussion is to revise, and it can be completely rewritten. If what you turned in was fake, not something you actually want to look at in your dissertation for your research project, rewrite it all. Rewrite it, start from scratch, but we're gonna put them into a discussion post this time, not into a paper. So revise and post your 3 foundational dissertation elements. Each one of those should be 1 sentence. And your question should be a question. A research question ends with a question mark. It asks a question. It's not a statement, okay? It's not a topic area. It's a research question. Again, volumes have been written on what makes a good research question. Check it out until you understand. Okay, and bullet number 2, remember, this is reality, okay? Be real. What do you want to study in your dissertation project? Some of you posted, or not posted, you turned in week 3 papers that I know are not real. That's not what you really want to look at. That's not what you're really going to do for your dissertation project. It's posing, it's fake. Okay, so make it something real that you actually want to work on. It doesn't, it's not a contract. You're not vowing to do it. It's something you're looking into, but be real about it. Okay. I don't understand the fake stuff I'm seeing. Okay, so restate your week 3 stuff. Okay, one sentence each. Of course, the question will be a question, but your problem statement and your purpose statement should be just that, a statement. Something is a problem. Users are not doing this. Big data is a problem because companies can't afford it, or whatever. Try and encapsulate it in one complete grammatically correct sentence, problem and purpose statement, and research question. And then uh, think about how you would go about, what method would you use to research your project. And again, look at your research question, you know, think, take half an hour, take an hour, read up on other sources of methodological considerations, watch some YouTube videos. Okay. And then in your discussion post, the second part, the new part, will be how would you go about that? Don't just post a background of what a what methodology is. Okay. I don't want just a definition of a methodology. I want you to discuss how you might approach your dissertation project. Remember, these discussions are supposed to be in the same tone you would use talking to a coworker at work about a technical topic or a work-related subject. Collegial, professional, but conversational. Everything you post should invite conversation. Your original posts and your replies to fellow students should be inviting conversation. And yes, if you're detecting frustration in my voice, good, because I am getting really tired of that was a really great post. Want to add a few points, and then just master of the obvious, Captain Obvious. I'm getting really sick of seeing it, and I want to see you discussing things. I saw a lot more. It was better, getting better, getting better. But the whole want to add a few points and then you tell them basically what everybody already knows. God, I don't even know why you try. I don't even know why you're enrolled in a PhD program if that's all you're going to do. What a wasted opportunity. So anyway, those are your discussions. Those are your topic areas. And that is my overarching feedback as a group. We can do better than this. Oh my goodness. So much better. So I encourage you to do so. Okay, that will be that for week 5.